Welcome! In this video, I'm gonna show you how to get your project from your computer to GitHub. This is often referred as pushing to GitHub. There are some prerequisites in order to achieve this goal. You should have installed Visual Studio Code. You should have profile on GitHub. And of course, you need to have the recent version of Git installed on your local machine. All these steps take just a couple of minutes. My project used in this video is gonna be a very simple website with button, which after clicking triggers alert saying you press the button. This button is centered to the middle wrapped in two divs. The first has relative and the second absolute position. The transition duration is set to 0.7 seconds and the website is styled to the pastel colors. So I prepared a folder called test push GitHub in which I created three files. The first one is index.html with simple HTML structure. The second one is style CSS with simple styling of the website, and the third one is JavaScript file called script.js which after pressing triggers the alert. The writing of the code is sped up, since this is individual for each of you. The code will be available on my GitHub profile in public repository. Your project can be much more complex than my simple example. GitHub will give you enough space. And one more little detail. It is possible to authenticate with the help of SSH key. GitHub will get the public key and you will have the private key, which will be verified always when you send some request. In this video, I'm gonna use the normal authentication where I need to write my username and password. If you want to edit the new created files in Visual Studio Code, there is a special command in CMD for that. Code. You just click the right mouse button and select the option Open in Terminal in the context menu. After that, the Windows PowerShell is going to be opened. Since you are now in the folder test push GitHub, now you just should write this command. And this will automatically open the project in Visual Studio Code. There is a chance that the following window is going to appear asking you if you really trust the authors of these files. But since you are the author, you can press the blue button. I want to push these three files on GitHub, which means that they are gonna need their own repository there. With simple words, we talk about some namespace on the remote server. And it is really easy to create your repository. All you need to do is just to push one single button on GitHub webpage. I'm going to provide a name for it, so I'm gonna call it test push GitHub repo. As you can see, GitHub is really trying to be helpful, especially for beginners, and after creating the repository, it is going to give you advice in form of commands that you're gonna need. You can copy them because you will need them later. Let's return now to our Visual Studio Code and let's open the terminal. Thanks to the terminal, we can tell and specify exactly to our computer what we want it to do. If you don't have configured the username and username in Git, you can use these two commands. And now the real fun starts. We're gonna use the command called git init. Thanks to this command, we are gonna initialize the local repository so it is created locally on your computer. You should now see that in your project folder, the new folder called .git was created. If you still don't see it, you should change two settings in your Windows. Click on the option marked as three dots next to the view, then Options, Ribbon tab, View, check the radio button with option Show hidden files, folders and drives, and uncheck the option Hide extensions for known file types. For better interaction with files, I strongly recommend you to change it right now. In the folder .git, all the magic happens under the hood, but in this moment you really don't have to understand it. It is just important to understand that this folder is pretty big and we do not need to push it on GitHub. That's why we're gonna create a new file which should be called .gitignore, or we can just use the following command. And inside we will just write two words, node_modules. This way we tell to the Git to ignore the node modules and leave them sitting just in your computer. One more file that we can add is readme, that should briefly describe our project. This should help to someone who is going to check our project on GitHub. We can create the readme with this command. README has its own formatting syntax that would deserve its own video. It could make many nice formatting tricks to make the project more comprehensible. Now we want to put all our files to the so-called staging area. Before this step, we can check that they are not in staging area with the command git status. The result will show us that the files are red and Git is giving us some hints. What should we do now? Now let's write this command. The dot in the end of the command says that we want to add all files, not just some chosen ones. We can see that even indicators in Visual Studio Explorer change from U, meaning untracked file, to the A, which means index added. Just to make sure, we can again write git status and we will now see that all the files are now in the staging area, which uses to be also called index. Now we are going to commit the files. Commit is snapshot of the history of changes which we made in files. Let's write this command in the terminal. Text, which we will write to the quotation marks, should describe the changes that are in this commit, and it should be understandable also for other people. Now let's go back to the text which we have copied from the GitHub. We should now execute in the terminal the following commands one by one. After writing all these commands, your repository on GitHub should be filled in the background with files from your project. GitHub will prompt you to authenticate that you are the owner of repository and of course of the profile. When you will refresh your browser, all the files should be in your GitHub repository and you have made your first push to GitHub. As you can see now, the code in your files has very nice syntax highlighting, which makes reading the code so much easier. In the description you will find a list of all commands that I have used in this video. I am really glad if I help to someone to understand better some Git commands that might seem a bit confusing on the first glance. Thanks for stopping by, and if you want to see the upcoming videos, subscribe to the channel Bracket Mutant.